Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. So, yeah, there's a thing I made based on Conway's Game of Life, which is where you have lots of cells, so they're like, there's lots of cells here, and a live cell, which is, in this case, a visible cell, will die if it's surrounded by anything but 2 or 3 neighbours. So if I play time, it died. If it has 2 neighbours, it stays alive. But if it has 4 neighbours and it's looking on all of the 8 surrounding cells, then it will die. If a cell has 3 neighbours, so that middle one there, that will come alive, like that. So each step, it kind of simulates that just those rules. So then you get interesting stuff like if you go like that will like walk off, do its own thing. And I've got like speed down here. I can hide the UI and things like that. And I can just draw on this, and I can delete stuff. So if I can draw, and I can so I'm drawing on new live cells, and I can kill cells with circle, and then play time, and it will just do its own thing. And I can mess with it while it's simulating as well. So my original version was 36 across by 20 tall. This is 49 across by 28 tall, which is 1,372 cells in the scene and all running at the same time. I'll go into like just the basic implementation, because the basic implementation is useful to understand if you're doing any kind of simulation of objects interacting in like a grid or something like that. So I'll make a cell on the grid. So I'm just making a cube, and this will be our live cube. So it will have a microchip on it, and I'll snap it to the grid so it's kind of facing us. And then I'll have another one, which is our dead cell. So I'll make the live cell white and metallic and shiny, and that will actually reflect the sky, which is why in that scene we're kind of looking down and we're seeing the sky, which is like a cool mixture of colours and stuff, and that's how it's reflecting. And then this one will just be invisible, like that, and we'll turn off preview invisibility so we can see it. So if we have a live one, it will want to check how many around it are also live. So we're going to indicate that by using a tag. So this tag is just a point in space, and when it's in a microchip, it defaults to being the face of the microchip right there. So we'll give it a name called live, and I'll just copy this out so that we can test to see how it's counting the surrounding ones. So we've got 3 out there, and I actually put these on the grid so I know the sizes we're talking about, right? And then that there, and it's got a check over here as well. Cool. So with this trigger zone, you can give it, it actually has this number detected output. So if we wire that into a number displayer, we can see what that gives us. And we are looking for the tag called live, and I'm using up and down on the D-pad to go through the tags that are in this scene. And at the moment, it's just giving us 1, because we're saying that the number required is 1. So as soon as it finds just 1 tag, it stops looking for any more tags, and it will say, yeah, we've detected it, and that's all we care about. So if we want to count beyond that number, we need to set this number required to beyond that number. So now it will count a maximum of 36, and it's getting back 5, because we actually have a tag, a tag, a tag, a tag, and a tag inside this as well, inside this chip. So it's finding its own tag, which we actually don't want to happen. We want to count how many are around it. So we will, there's a special setting called detection scope, and we can say not here, which means it only looks for stuff outside of its own group. So if we make this, instead of just surface snapped, we can put it into a group. So just grab it and press L1 and X, and now it's in that group, and we don't need that wire thing there. So now it's in a group, and normally that would count 5, but if we only count stuff not in that group, we get 4. And we can have a maximum of 8 because there are 8 spots around this cube. So now I will adjust this zone size, so it's just about getting to those. Oh, we need to make sure it gets the corners as well. Let's put one on the corner, and we want it to say 5 because now we have 5. So let's adjust the size. Now it gets 5, so that's fine. And if we add more on the corners, we get up to the 8. Like so. So now we have a way of counting how many tags are around it that are alive. So, and we can actually cap it at 4 because remember the rules are, if it's alive and it has less than 2 or more than 3, then it's going to die on the next step. So we actually only need to count 4 of these. So this will save a bit on performance. I'm using up and down on the D-pad to go up and down on this setting by 1. So yeah, now it will count up to 4. So then we have a calculator, and we wire that in, and we say if it's more than 3, or it's less than 2, then we want to omit this dead cube. So then we have other logic going on in this dead cube. So to do that, we have an emitter, and then we link it to the dead cube version, and we don't want to move or anything. None of this really matters. We want once on, so that you power it and it just emits that once. But we also want to destroy this cube, so that it will be replaced by the dead cube. So we get this destroyer, but first we emit it, so we want to power the emitter, and then when it actually emits, it will send a signal from object just emitted. And then we can wire that into the destroyer, and this will make sure the engine knows that we want to emit it and destroy it, and it will kind of sort itself out nicely. We need to make sure this destroyer affects this group. So we could go in here and go affected objects and click on there. So now the destroyer affects that whole group, and play time, and it destroys itself. So with this emitter though, we have to move it over so that it's on the same spot. I'm using press triangle to put it on the same grid, and just put it in exactly the same spot. And now we play time, and it's been replaced by a new copy of the dead cell. So that's cool. So that's about it for that. And then on the dead cell we'll have some similar logic. So we don't actually need this, but we'll need these. So put that in there. So if this cell is dead, then we want to know if it's surrounded by exactly 3 live cells. We still need it to check for 4, so that if it's 4 and not 3, then we don't want to replace it with an alive one because it will instantly die anyway. So we will check to see if the number detected is 3, and I'm using L1 and square to edit this directly with a number pad. And we set that to equals, so if we find exactly 3, then we'll emit this. We'll just press triangle on this to remove it. we'll emit that, and we'll emit that in this position. So I'll use L1 and triangle to use this object grid now, and move over this preview and press triangle to put it on the grid, and that will emit in the same place. But again, we need to put this chip inside so that it's part of a group. And wire up this destroyer to destroy the whole group like that. But we need to make sure this is emitting this actual group, not the sculpt just inside it. So let's redo that as well. Now what's happening here is, if we turn on preview invisibility, we can see that the live cube is now hidden because it's actually turned off, because it's now a reference for an emitter. So we want it to be turned off and just hidden. So let's just move that out of the way, and we'll make a copy of the live cube and turn it on and put it back into place. So now we can start, and we have a live cube already there, and it replaces itself with a dead cube. Now the dead cube is waiting for when there's only 3 tags around it, and also because this tag is actually at the top, we want to adjust these tags to make sure that trigger zone, we're doing that trigger zone properly. And you'll also have to adjust this so that it's, if you set this to 1, these are told that they are detected only if the required number has been found. So if you just put it to 1, then all of them will be detected and have this black face on them. So it indicates that it's actually been detected by this trigger zone. That's a good way of testing to make sure that the trigger zone is finding all of these tags in these positions. So to make sure this is working properly, I'm going to have a timeline which is going to turn on these calculators so that they only actually do stuff once every so often, and that will let us kind of step through. So let's put a keyframe. So first I'll turn off these calculators, and then make a keyframe that turns them on. And then put that in the timeline. And this will just be 1 frame long by default. If you use L1 and right, we can see it only uses one of these logic frames, which means it will just kind of pulse on, and that's about it. So if we make a copy and turn it on, and we play time, we set this to loop. So now it's only trying to calculate just once every loop through that. So if we give this 4 on the corners, then it should die. But something to be aware of is when you emit something, it doesn't automatically get all the wires attached to it. So if I have just have a switch in here instead, and I'll just wire it into there, into there, and into there. So this switch is wired into all those calculators. So again, it will only happen once through this loop. So if we have a copy of that, then this doesn't have a wire coming from this switch, so it's not going to turn on that calculator. The same thing happens with a keyframe, because a keyframe is actually just a bundle of invisible wires going into things like power and different settings that just set those settings while that keyframe is powered. That has to wire into this new copy though. So let's go down here, put it in there, and power this other calculator. So that gets replaced and it gets emitted with this wire. So the same thing happens with a keyframe. So I'll turn that back on. So I think that's affecting everything, yeah. So now we'll play and it gets replaced by a dead one, and then if we have only 3, then it should come alive again. Yay! and it's working. And then we'll add another one, and then it dies. So that's all working fine. So now if I make an array of a load of these, we'll see what happens. Turn them on, then play time. Now they're simulating those rules. And then we can make this, so we can give it like a top speed sort of thing by keeping it 100% and making this shorter. So now it's simulating faster, and then we can slow it down by just slowing that down. But something to remember is we want this to all happen at once. So all these calculators need to be turned on for a fraction of a second, as brief a time as possible, for that, so that they're not affected by other cubes changing before they've calculated. So instead of using just a keyframe in here, we'll put that, let's just put this into a chip. And we'll have a switch in here. And we'll use a, so normally this would only, 100%, this would be a single frame. But because we're slowing it down, like if I slow it really way down, those are lasting a lot of frames, and you can make it go super slow and then they last for ages. So we want to make sure it always just turns this keyframe on for that frame time. So we can do that with a signal manipulator over here and turn it into a pulse. So even if this stays on for longer than a frame, this will let out that signal only for a single frame and turn these calculators on. So let's try that again. So now it's simulating in a similar way as it was before. So one last sort of part of this would be to have a big grid of the dead ones and be able to turn them alive and dead by hovering over them and pressing a button. So I'm going to show you how to do that part. Right, so for the live ones, we want to know if we're hovering over it with the imp. So we're going to get a grab sensor, which detects if you're grabbing it with the imp, but also if you're hovering over it with the imp. If we're hovering over it, then we want to turn it into a dead one. So we'll wire that into here and there as well. But also we only want to do that if we're holding a certain button. So we'll turn this off and then we'll turn on the grab sensor so it actually pays attention while we're holding circle. So I'll have a controller sensor in here and put it into remote controllable mode, so you don't actually have to possess anything. It just outputs the signals from the buttons. So while I'm holding circle, we'll have a keyframe that turns this on, and then we'll have the same thing over here where normally it's off, and then it will be turned on by a keyframe while we're holding X, like that. So then this will, while you're hovering and holding X, then it will do the whole thing as well. We just need to wire into the emit actually, because that will destroy itself afterwards. So now we can have a load of these in a big grid. So the way I did this in the scene, which tends to be easier to kind of maintain, is I have an emitter that emits the dead cube like that, and we don't want speed, we just want it on once mode, and then we'll move this over to be underneath it. And if we have this window open, we actually see a preview of it, so it makes it easier to move around. So that emitter will emit right below it, and then we have a whole column of these. So I'll have a whole column. So that's 12, and then we play time, and now we've got a whole column of them. And we can group those up. That's 12. And then inside this group we'll have a destroyer, which will destroy that whole group. So we want to tweak this and scope out. But we actually need to wire this into some objects, because you can see it kind of reaches through and clicks on one of the actual gadgets instead of the whole group. So we need just something in here that's just a normal visible thing, like a paint fleck. So I'll put this paint fleck kind of in front of this whole group, and then we'll just turn that off. And now we just see the front of that paint fleck, and that's all. And it's off, so it will be invisible normally, but we have preview invisibility off, which means we can still see it. So normally in the scene it will look like this, but we use this so that we can mess with logic stuff, you know. So if we play time now, it gets replaced by a whole column of those, and now we can have a whole load of columns like that, and now we have a whole load of them. So if we just play, and I'll need to set up a camera because these will actually be invisible, and we'll add a camera so that we know we're looking roughly in the right place, and you can actually scope in with L1 and X, and then I'll play time so that I can see where this grid is, and I'll just zoom in a bit. That'll do for testing. And I'll set this to cut mode so that when we go into play mode we just are immediately in this view. So in these columns though, we need to emit with wires again. So let's just do that. I'm going to double tap X to select everything in the group, and then I can emit I can tweak one of the emitters and change it, and all of these will change. So I've done emit with wires. If we pick a random one, that's got emit with wires as well. Okay. So when things like that happen, I just make a copy and turn it on, and then I can see the actual logic happen in test mode. So now I go to test mode. So it's on. It's not noticing that I'm hovering over it though. But just like the destroyer has to know what to destroy, this has to know what to sense from. So if we use this sense grab input and put that into the group, and we do the same for the live version, then I can like draw out, and now it's all working. But another way of doing this is tweaking the chip itself and then attaching that to the group. And now all the gadgets inside it will use that group for reference. So I'll do that for these as well. So I'll make this invisible again. And now we can just have a toggle for if it's actually playing time or not. So then we can draw nice patterns before we start the simulation. So I'll have a selector. I'll put it onto R3, which is play time. So push R3 to kind of toggle through these. So this is a selector and it has multiple channels. They send out a signal only when the active channel, and only one of them can be an active channel at a time. And then you can tell it which channel to be active in different ways. So here we just want 2 modes, and we want to change between those modes when we push R3. And when we're in play mode, then this should have some speed, otherwise it will have no speed. So do that, and then set it to 100% with this keyframe. So now I can draw a heart, and then play time, and it explodes. And we could do stuff like press triangle to step forward just 1 frame in the simulation. Maybe it should also be off, and then we power the timeline with this keyframe as well. And now this this triangle to step will work. So I'll just do a squiggle and press triangle, and now we can just go 1 frame at a time. And press R3 to let it simulate.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.